On the number 38 slide,
Okay,
page 38,
sure.
on the water system development charges, does this include those, the commercial type charges where they have an MPDS permit already? Where the particular, you're talking about the average charge for, say, a 2-inch or 3-inch, so that's not a moderately sized commercial.
Just as an example, it also could be a multifamily
But this doesn't.
complex.
This is the
potable.
regular.
This is potable water.
This is potable water.
Drinking water.
Yeah, for the domestic water system.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But it doesn't include the people that already have the MPDS permits, we're already issuing the discounts?
You're thinking storm? Stormwater?
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
this is domestic water, so,
This is domestic.
yeah,
Go
we
back
got.
one, I'm sorry.
Well, no
We're
problem.
jumping around to different water systems.
We'll be there in 1 second. So we've
Okay,
got the
thanks.
water, and then again, the sewer here, and now we're on to the storm. And so this is essentially per equivalent unit. And so how this is the current charge is $450, the updated charge is right around the same amount, so we'd be proposing no change. And so that is $450 per equivalent service unit, where the ESU is about a 3,900 square foot property. So non-residential type customers would pay the $450 for every 3,900 square feet of impervious surface area. So you take their total impervious surface area, divide it by the 3,900, that would give them like a factor multiplied by that. So this would be applicable to all new connections onto the stormwater system. So this is not applicable to those who are already connected. This is for new customers connecting in the future. You have to pay their share. Okay. Finally, we're going to look at a utility rate survey comparison. Again, this is just for information only. That provides just kind of a look-see at where your current water, sewer, and storm rates are in comparison to some nearby jurisdictions. So we've got Washougal there in the middle we've got existing and we've got across the board, and we have cost of service. And so what this is essentially showing is, a little bit on the lower end under the existing rates compared to the other areas here, and under the proposed, which is where it says Washougal across the board, the ATB stands for across the board, would show that you'd be right about in the middle of where these jurisdictions are. And again, this is just taking what the current published rates are for these other entities. They may be undergoing rate studies as well to where their rates will go up. Again, these are currently as published online now, so it just kind of gives an idea of where the city sits with water, sewer, and storm. And then we just have the final slide is really just looking at policy direction concurrence questions on the financial policies, key assumptions, revenue requirements, fire protection costs, and rate structure alternatives, which we've postponed. I think we've got one more final slide. We did some changes here. So what we've talked about so far today is up through the revenue requirement analysis, all assuming that the city for each utility maintains its current rate structure and implements any needed rate increases across the board to the current rates. We're also working with the city on going through an evaluation of water, sewer, cost of service, and rate design structures, and that is in progress for a deliverable to come back in 2011 with what the shifts would be in cost of service versus also implementing maybe different types of rate structures, more conservation-oriented rate structures, et cetera. And what that does is looks at just making sure that your current recovery of cost from the different customers is in line with equity, and that your rate structures are meeting your policy objectives for conservation, fairness, that type of thing. So again, working through data collection process there, customer billing data, to bring that forward next year. So with that, that is my closing slide, and I'd be happy to go back to any slides or address any questions you might have. Excuse me?
Debt service coverages under financial policies.
Yes?
Recommendation is to set rates to maintain a coverage ratio of at least 1.25% annual bond debt service payments.
Yes.
Including the SECs. why do we have the additional kicker in there for 40% over the full amount of the years?
Why the point, why the .25? It's a requirement. It's in your bond covenants from those who issue revenue bonds. There is an actual requirement. It's a securitization for them, so they want to make sure that you can pay your operating expenditures, you can pay that debt service. That would give you a 1.0 coverage, and then they want to make sure that you have a 25% cushion to make sure you don't default on your bonds. So it's a stipulated requirement.
Then when I look at things like the water capital funding plan, and which where, in those one we've got the one on the sewer capital funding plan. When I'm looking at capital cash of 6%, new revenue bonds of 94%, would that go back to, bear with me,
Make this go away.
debt management, 50% debt, 50% equity, rule of thumb finance, debt finance no more than 75% of current 6-year capital programs.
Let me,
Those not-
okay, let me comment on that one, right. So the first one is overall you want to maintain 50% equity, 50% debt. And it's really depending on where you're starting now, but the rule of thumb is to try to keep in those guidelines, depending on where you are now, is to not finance more than 75% of your CIP. So if we look at water, and then you'll note down there also, I believe on the chart, I had noted that your current debt to equity ratio is you got about 25% debt now compared to 75% equity. So you're very low on the good side. You have low debt. And so for water example, you're 67%, 23, you're a little bit high on the 75 rule, but because you're starting low, you're still going to remain within that 50-50 over time. And, it's a real long-term picture thing. So certainly when you get to sewer and storm, where you see that jump up to 95%, that is where it starts indicating that, you're still going to be within that 50-50 because, storm is a fairly small component and isn't going to push it out that much. But it is the caution that this is why we're proposing the system reinvestment funding, because that is essential to getting capital revenues, because if you don't have any type of money coming from rates or going in to fund the capital, you'll continue in the next 5 to 10 year period needing to issue debt, then you would topple over that 50 years. So right now I think good through the study period, a caution that there does need to be system reinvestment funding, hopefully growth returns at a stronger increase over years to get system development charge revenues, because that's what you use. That's where the cash comes from. Did that answer that for you?
Yeah, my final question is on the system reinvestment funding. Recommendation, water pays in over 5 years, 20%, and sewer 10 years at 10%. Can you explain the difference between the 5 and 10 year on those capital items in there? Why you would depreciate 1 over 5 versus 10?
We were really just looking at it's a strategy to smooth the rates over time. If we had done the 5-year phasing for sewer, where we're already at like 3 years of almost 30% rate increases followed, it would have brought those up extremely high. And so because the debt service is getting high, we tried to balance that.
My question is more on the water.
Okay.
If you take that to 10 years to match the sewer versus the 5
Oh,
years,
okay.
that is-
How much of a savings? We could probably do